The Minnesota Twins get one All-Star. One! So, is it time to get mad? Is it time to get even? Or is it time to just get locked on Twins?
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for the latest Minnesota Twins discourse, analysis, angst, anger. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Brown. I've been in the Baseball Writers Association since 2012. I've written about our favorite game since roughly 1998 or so. And across cyberspace is my co-host, Brandon Warren. Brandon, tell the nice people about yourself.
Been watching the Twins for going on 30 years. Actually, this is year 32. So it's been a minute, and then I have covered the Twins in some form or fashion for about 15. So it's been, again, a minute that I've been doing all this, which is great fun, and I love doing the show for you guys.
We want to remind you that the Locked On Twins podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and that network brings you your team every day, and your team is the Minnesota Twins in all likelihood, unless you're one of those weird Guardians fans that likes to hang around, and welcome to it if you want. But today's show is going to be mostly focused on the All-Star rosters, which were announced Sunday afternoon. And it isn't terribly surprising to me. Maybe out there in Twins land, among the Twin Cities, you thought maybe the Twins would get more than one person, but Carlos Correa has been named to the All-Star team, and he has been Minnesota's best player in the first half. I think that's been pretty clear. Royce Lewis has had his moments. Ryan Jeffers had a couple of weeks there, but ever since he's been back in the lineup, Carlos Correa on offense and defense has been every bit. He's been raking on both sides of the ball, and it's. I guess I'm a little surprised that in that maybe he made some enemies along the way in terms of things that happened with the Houston Astros, and maybe that would cause some people to not be too excited about him going to the All-Star team. But I think Brandon, we can agree that he is the most deserving Twin to make it to the All-Star game.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, I am a little disappointed that there's one Twin and 9 combined Royals and Guardians. But at the end of the day, the Twins are kind of a team that spreads it out. And so you can't send everybody who's been semi-decent or better. And so it is what it is. You talk about snubs too, and it's hard to get too up in arms because you got to kind of take into consideration the rules and all that. But Carlos Correa, as you stated, has been not only the best player, the most consistent player, but just indisputably the guy this year. Like you said, Jeffers had moments. Even Byron Buxton lately has been on a heater. And let's not forget about Jose Miranda and a few other guys. There was a notable one that I thought should have made it that we'll talk about at some point here. But yeah, got to give Correa some love. By the way, today's episode brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. We do have the link in the description on this show, whether you're listening or watching on YouTube. Also, you can catch every pitch of the Twins hometown broadcast with Chris Atterbury and cast of characters on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app, search Twins. It's going to be, we think, Chris Paddock against Chris Flexen for the White Sox on Monday. It's going to be first pitch 7:10 p.m. at Guaranteed Rate Field. So get excited.
Coming into today, Carlos Correa, I believe this is coming into today, hitting 305, slashing 305, 374, 508, 11 home runs. He doesn't really steal bases anymore, but 9.7 walk percentage, 17.1 K percentage, isolated power, over 200, which is good, 202.
What'd you say for non-base?
For on base, I had him at, I'm not sure if this is coming into today or including today, 374.
376, which is 2 points, which is what happens when you get hit by a pitch and leave the game. You don't gain any average and you don't gain any slugging percentage, but he did gain 2 points on the old OBP.
How about that? He's been. I mean, that's been like the number one. We're not going to talk too much about what happened in the recent games against the Astros, I guess, but Correa is a guy that does have an injury history, but the last few games have been kind of harrowing for fans to watch as he's been hitting the hand a couple times.
Yeah,
not exactly in the same spot or maybe even the same hand, but he's come out of it with good scans and says, he came out of the game today, but says, I'll be back in the lineup the next day or something to the degree.
Well, and it's not as though you can Google, did Carlos Correa get hit on the hand in the future? So I mean, these things happen. It doesn't mean you didn't Google.
That's true. Remember that, Falvey, when you're talking about the next transaction you make.
Great trade.
What's that?
Great trade, Falvey.
Yes. But I would say it's a good point to bring him. It's a good thing to bring him up, Falvey, because it just shows that bringing Correa in was the right thing to do when he's your best player in the first half of the season, and you have a team with a winning record that's in pretty good shape to make the playoffs. I think it shows that the bet that the Twins made on Correa and him betting on them after things didn't work out with the Mets and the Giants has been pretty fortuitous. Has it not been for the Twins?
Bob Nightingale had a story about how he's at peace with being with the Twins, and I think that's pretty timely when the Astros are in town. So I had always thought, and I can't remember if I thought it would be after the Joe Mauer contract expired or what exactly, but I knew the Twins had a lot of financial flexibility coming up, and I always figured that money would go toward an elite shortstop. And the marketplace in the last few years, maybe not as much here this last year, and honestly didn't matter anyway because they had Correa, but it was flush with them. Javier Baez and Dansby Swanson, Trevor Story, and the Twins avoided some landmines there. And again, maybe you could say Carlos Correa is a landmine as well because that ankle could explode at any moment. But it came down to two shortstops for me. Who do you think was the other one? I'll give you a hint. He did not hit free agency.
I'm not sure, Brandon.
Francisco Lindor, I thought would be in that mix. Because Guardians, you got the Falvey connection there. And I was also pretty excited about the possibility of Trevor Story, which again, free agent landmine 1.0. Well, maybe 2.0 after Javier Baez, but still.
Well, you talk about an injury history that hopefully the front office Googled Trevor Story. If the Twins had gone with him instead to somehow at shortstop, and he hasn't played hardly at all for the Red Sox because of just terrible luck with injuries.
Well, his arm is short, his shot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, I think at this point we'll take our first break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Carlos Correa, but also maybe some of the guys who didn't make it for the Twins and what our degree of outrage should be. Of course, when you look at who made it from the Guardians and the Royals, Brandon already kind of hinted at that. It might jack up the outrage meter a little bit more, but we're going to do that when we come back from this break.
Well, first, we got to tell you about Prize Picks. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app and has over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because unlike other apps, it's just you squaring off with the numbers. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's daily action that you can do with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. And again, finals are over, whether you're thinking of Stanley Cup finals or for me, it's NBA finals. But that doesn't mean that the hoops are over on Prize Picks. Women's basketball is still going strong. You've got the All-Stars. You've got the Olympics coming up. And whether you like rookie stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese battling it out for Rookie of the Year, or if you like the stars like Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu and even Nafisa Collier locally, you could gamble on them and win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. And it's available in more than 30 states across the country, including Cali, Texas, and Georgia. So get on the app and figure out if it's for you. So download Prize Picks, the app today, whether you're on Google Play or Apple. And what do they call that? Apple. I don't know why I can't think of it.
Apple Plus TV, Apple TV Plus.
I don't think it's on Apple TV, but on Apple, just download on Apple apps. Use the code Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So they're going to match your first deposit up to $100 if you use the code Locked On MLB. It's Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And then we do gotta give some big ups to our friends at Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Twins, we love to let you know about all the up-to-date stuff with rosters. You got the MLB draft coming up, whether it's spring training or the playoffs. Hopefully the Twins are playing in the playoffs. It's year-round. It's a year-round coverage kind of deal. Also year-round tax season. It doesn't just end on that one day in the middle of April. It's collection season, and they're coming for you if you're not prepared. They will garnish your wages. They can levy your bank accounts or even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. I know I have a number of different places that I have to report wages for, whether it's writing, editing, podcasting, all that. And tax professionals are a must for me. And even if you have taxes that are a little less complicated, still, Tax Network USA can help you out. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, I always do the acronym BBB, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion. That's B with $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated tax matters, or you finally hit that big parlay with our friends over at Prize Picks, you need to talk to these folks. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon, or just click below here in the description on this episode, whether you're on YouTube or listening on some audio provider. We got the link right down there. It's Tax Network. Give them a look.
Carlos Correa had an amazing first half. He had a 5-hit game. He has some of the best tags in the league as far as getting runners at second base, trying to steal. His range is, according to the metrics, is down a little bit, but he's still a plus defensive player at shortstop. I don't know if anybody is more prepared to play every day than Carlos Correa. Are you the thing that, like I kind of mentioned before, the thing that made me think maybe he won't be the guy that goes to the All-Star game for the Twins is, I wouldn't say a reputation, but just a general feeling around the league among certain players that he's one of the guys from the Astros. And it's brought up from time to time. The Astros were in town this weekend, and there was a lot of booing of Jose Altuve. Some Twins fans noted that, the Astros just took out the Twins last year in the playoffs, and maybe that had something to do with it. But I also think it's kind of naive to think that people aren't booing Altuve. They're choosing to boo Altuve, but it doesn't have anything to do with the cheating scandal. I don't think that's true in Minnesota. But the fans, obviously, they overlook that stuff with Correa. But do you think, what about Correa's reputation around the league? The way we describe him as a player, being so prepared, having a high baseball IQ, being in the right place at the right time, does that overwhelm the stain of what happened with the Astros?
Well, I wanted to say, when we say tag, you're it as kids, do you think tag, you're out, could that be a thing? Because I think that could be a Carlos Correa thing, like tag, you're out.
I like that.
Yeah. So anyway, when I look at also Fangraphs WAR has him third in the AL, and it's been a while since among shortstops. It's been a while since I've checked, and so there's 2 AL guys in front of him, and then 3 NL: Ellie De La Cruz, Mookie Betts, and Francisco Lindor. Correa's at 3.1. I had no idea. Like, I knew Gunnar Henderson was having a crazy season, but he's already been 6.1 Fangraphs WAR. That just feels astonishing to me. And Bobby Witt Jr. at 5.4. Again, just an incredible season. We're over halfway, so it's not like, you can look at that and say we're almost to the midpoint of the season with the All-Star break. This is a 12-WAR season for Henderson, and he's going to have to keep it up at that pace. But that's still an astonishing number. Anyway, with that said, it comes down to you look at teams needing representatives. And so, like, are there any shortstops on a team where they may not have had any other representative? And, you kind of scroll down and, for the Astros, Jeremy Pena, you could maybe make that case. I don't know. Jose Caballero for the Rays, but his defense is most of his value. So it's hard to say. And that's where I get kind of tied up to in the snubs is like, if you can't just say this guy's a snub, this guy's a snub, this guy's a snub without removing somebody and kind of making your case. Like I saw someone saying Anthony Santander was a snub, and I'm like, he's got a 300 on base percentage. I know he's got 23 home runs, but he's got sub 2 WAR via Baseball Reference, and so it's like it's so easy to say snub, 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 snub. You get a car and you get a car and or whatever it is with what was that Oprah thing?
That's Oprah giving away cars. Yes.
Right. Yeah. It's easy to do that. But with Correa, like if it hadn't been him and it would have been, say, Willie Castro, I don't think it would have been that big of an uproar because having a utility or a jack of all trades is also, it's defensible with how these games are managed. So I thought it was going to be Correa. I'm glad it's Correa, but I did have some questions about, like you said, how he's perceived around the league. And also, shortstop's just kind of a tricky position with how good the guys at the top have been in the AL because they've kind of, as good as Correa's been, left him in the dust.
You mentioned Francisco Lindor before, and it's funny to me how close we were to Correa not playing shortstop at all anymore. He was going to go play third in New York with Lindor at short. So and that would have been real interesting. I think Correa he still plays a great shortstop. That would have been kind of an amazing defensive alignment. To have
imagine that arm at third base.
That arm. Yes.
Astonishing.
Exactly. So you talk about snubs. I would say that the top snub, it's close. The top snub on the Twins as it relates to them is Joe Ryan, just based on volume of innings. Maybe a close second would be Griffin Jax.
That'd be my number one.
Yeah, I think I couldn't. At first, I was pretty sure it was going to be Jax and then Ryan, but I looked at where Joe Ryan places. He's 14th in ERA. He's good at the and he's also good at he's fourth in K minus walk percentage. So he's got a very wide gradient there. So those are good stats. He's fifth in expected ERA, seventh in FWAR. So again, it's something that Twins fans talk about a lot. I think Joe Ryan's overall numbers aren't quite as good as they could be with a little more luck. And you look at the players on the All-Star roster, though. Like who do you take off? I see only one obvious player among the pitchers, anyway, who I would remove. I would say Joe Ryan and Jax are really good candidates, but I would say Clay Holmes is the guy.
Yep, that was what I was going to say. Jax over Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes has a whip in like the 1.31 range. Like that just is not very good for a late inning, supposedly elite reliever. And I think Clay Holmes is great. I either have him or had him in that fantasy league that you and I compete against each other in. I wouldn't say compete. I'm in second to last place. And the only team behind me is the team who hasn't set a lineup this year. So it's not really competing, I guess. But yeah, I have no problems, no qualms with Clay Holmes as getting some recognition, but he's by no means been better than Griffin Jax this year. And maybe, if Jax was a primary closer instead of the guy that closes when Juan Duran is down, maybe he gets some more love. But I also think that, we're in an era where people don't care that much about saves, at least not as much as they used to. So yeah, I thought Jax was a bigger snub, but I'm willing to be swayed to the Joe Ryan side because, Joe Ryan is awesome. Like in every way, shape, or form is awesome.
So if we're going to take Clay Holmes off the roster, I suppose the first choice would be to replace him with a reliever.
Yeah.
And if we're doing that, that gets Griffin Jax back into the game. The funny thing about Holmes making it was that he wasn't even the best pitcher in the Yankees bullpen in the first half. Luke Weaver, of all people,
I love Luke Weaver.
did really well as the relief pitcher, and I think leads the league in relief innings, and had a better season than Clay Holmes. I saw lots of people, a lot of Yankee hand wringing over Clay Holmes. Well, maybe we should start him as a starter because he's not elite as a reliever and things of that nature. So, and I just, but if we're going to take Holmes out of the game, who are the people that Joe Ryan would be competing against? Probably George Kirby, Eric Fetty, people like that. And if it's a reliever, maybe Weaver, Yimi Garcia. Kenley Jansen has actually had a great, amazing first half for the Red Sox. And that's a guy I wouldn't be surprised if they have to replace somebody on the roster that's a relief pitcher, that Jansen would be a guy that you'd bring in. So I think Joe and Griffin are players who you could have put them on the All-Star team. But I also think that if you look at their numbers compared to maybe 3 or 4 other guys in their sphere, those other guys have just as good of a case. So it's a snub maybe, but kind of a minor one.
Well, so Fangraphs WAR, which is not great for relievers, but it's at least a fair across the board, I guess. Griffin is tied for 4th with Justin Slayton of the Red Sox, Cade Smith of the Guardians, and Kenley Jansen of the Red Sox. Oh, Kirby Yates, I guess, is up there too. Jansen and Yates haven't given up a home run yet this year. But Clay Holmes is 11th. Now, 9.3 Ks per nine, 2.0 walks per nine. The reason he's getting knocked around is the 349 batting average on balls in play. So maybe I was a little unfair to Clay Holmes. He's tied. No, he's 11th at 0.9 by win probability added. So just in general, let's see here. I'm trying to find Griffin Jax 13th. Joan Duran's actually higher at 127. Number 1 though, Emmanuel Clase. So there's a bunch of guys that are a little bit above him, but at the same time, like Jax's numbers, maybe I'm being biased. I just think his numbers are better than Holmes to the point where I would have picked him over the Yankee. And again, I know the Yankee gets the nod because he's a Yankee, but I don't know.
Maybe the two 11th in WPA in wins in win probability added for Jax, but only 28th in innings for relief pitchers. So, and we are talking about degrees at this point. It's not like a huge amount of innings, but it's still far enough down the list that that darn Rocco only going in 1 inning at a time. He said he wanted to bring in guys for 1 2/3, but he's not really doing it with Jax. But so I would say that if there needs to be a replacement. It's possible that Joe Ryan or Griffin Jax still could be going, although I wouldn't be surprised if Kenley Jansen is the next guy on the list based on some of the other stats that I've seen. So it's not over yet. Maybe the Twins will have another guy as far as the pitchers go.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. So I think this is a good time for our last break, and we'll do that, and we'll talk about the rest of the snubs on the offensive side, do a little more Willie Castro, and maybe look at Carlos Santana and people like that and see what we think about that.
You got it. We love sports here at Locked On Twins and never want them to stop. But as playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing. There's fewer games, but FanDuel lets us keep sports going whenever and wherever we want. All we have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime we're in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers, not just new customers, everyone with a boost or a bonus every single day. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. No matter how hot it gets outside, you can stay cool with FanDuel. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. Twins headed to the previous host of this show called it Guaranteed Lame Field, but they're going to be taking on the White Sox. Twins are favored by a run and a half on the spread, a -113. On the money line, a -184, and the over-under is 9. So you can run, don't walk, and get your picks in on FanDuel, which is an official, easy for me to say, sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
I don't know how close Carlos Santana is or was to possibly making the All-Star team, and he's probably not the first person that would come to mind for fans. Willie Castro, I think, 11th in Fangraphs WAR among all players, among all hitters in the American League is probably his best case, plus that versatility. So Willie might be somebody that could be a last-second replacement. But as far as the overall WAR, I mean, Vladimir Guerrero is the reserve first baseman, I believe, right? No, he's he's the starter. He's the starter.
Naylor's the reserve, isn't he?
Yeah. So that's the other thing. All the extra Guardians and Royals that are going, I don't have a problem with Lugo and Reagans. I think they had better first halves than Joe Ryan. Josh Naylor got off to a hot start like Ryan Jeffers did. And I think Ryan Jeffers he's just been in a slump for too long because his numbers aren't really that far off either. Behind the and Ryan Jeffers was definitely headed to an all-star berth, but then like May and June happened. So that's why it's not going to happen. But as far as first base goes, the Twins have gotten as much out of Carlos Santana as Naylor or even Vladimir Guerrero. There's kind of a dearth at first base. I think Carlos Santana has been every bit as good as those guys.
Yeah, and Jeffers is second in Fangraphs WAR at catcher. I mean, a catcher slugging 481. Those don't come around every day. And, he stung some balls that have been right at guys, 251 batting average on balls in play. So it's not as though he hasn't, even in his struggles, hit the ball hard. So, again, it just kind of has come down to, Salvador Perez legacy, whatever, gets the nod there. And who knows? Again, things will come up. Guys will either get hurt or back out due to one reason or another, especially on the pitching side. Guys who've pitched recently in proximity to the game will back out. And so Who knows, maybe Jax or Ryan jump in there. But at catcher too, like David Fry is right there. And I don't think he's catching really that much for the Guardians. I think it's been mostly the Bo Naylor and Austin Hedges show back there.
They're calling him a DH on the MLB website, David Fry, as far as, and I don't have a problem with Fry.
Well, but he doesn't me either. I mean, that doesn't mean his overall numbers aren't great. Don't get me wrong, and he deserves to be there. But, I feel like at the same time too, there is some credit for guys who've, the recency bias of who's been good lately. And if that was the case, maybe Jose Miranda should have gotten a longer look. But again, you can look at Byron Buxton that way. I think I saw someone tweet that he's one of only 2 AL center fielders with an OPS over 800. A couple hits.
That's sneaky though. That was a sneaky 800 for a while. It didn't seem like Byron was
trending that way,
turning along with everyone else. But it just goes to show you it doesn't take long to get hot and then kind of skew your numbers a little bit one way or another. I think here's something I posit. Can the Twins, and I'm answering this question with the affirmative, can the Twins use this whole, the Royals got all these all-stars and the Guardians got all these all-stars and we just got one. Can they somehow become the underdog dudes in the second half? We're going to overcome this business because these teams aren't really that much better than us, so we're going to prove it to them.
I would say that's possible, but I would lean more into like they get a break, and that's also beneficial. What is it, 5 days off now? Didn't it used to be shorter than that? I thought maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought it was 3 at one point. But maybe I'm again misremembering. I don't always have the best memory. It's good, but it's short.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm thinking 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it used to be that, and then they started to give off Thursdays and sometimes Fridays too. So depending on how the schedule works, but I mean, it's a big break. It is, and it's not. We're not talking about a physically grueling so much because it's not. We're not talking about full games, but it is a mental deal where you don't get that chance to reset.
Well, and the Twins have 2 days off this week coming up, or 2 days off coming up here. And so I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be good to just kind of head into the break semi-rested at the same time, and then just ride it out into the break, get some time off, get the bullpen rested. Hopefully, at some point, you get Brock Stewart back. Who knows about Topa? And get ready to roll for the second half, because Glenn Perkins said on the game today he still thinks that the Twins are going to win the division, and he's not that optimistic of a guy. So no better time.
There's no reason to rip Glenn Perkins. No, I'm saying I kind of agree. And I would say that maybe the Twins themselves won't use it as motivation, but I think that's going to dominate the Twitter discourse. If the Twins do come back and win the second half, it's going to be all about, well, Naylor ain't playing like an all-star now, and where David Fry's batting average on balls in play is dropping, and all that stuff. So Emmanuel Clase is probably still going to be the best reliever in the American League, but the other things might fall out for them. So I think that's going to how the discourse is going to go in the second half. So maybe we'll see. But that is going to wrap it up for this All-Star edition, All-Star Reserve Starter Discourse edition of Locked On Twins. For my co-host Brandon Warren, this is Dave Brown saying we're going to see you tomorrow night.